Welcome, everyone, to this Clubhouse event. Your energy, health, be responsible with empowering solutions. Protect our children. I would like to start by raising the vibration in the space that we're in now by calling for the highest possible vibration and calling for the truth to come forward into our discussion today, this evening, so that we may see the truth in all that we see, so that we may hear the truth in all that we hear, and so that we may speak the truth in all that we say. Shall we be in that frequency of truth? Shall we have nothing but the truth? Shall we call for the power divine feminine to bring balance back into our world, showing us the way through honor, respect, and gratitude? Shall we call for the power divine feminine to bring balance back into our world, showing us the way through honor, respect, and gratitude? Shall we call for the power divine feminine to bring balance back into our world, bringing forth balance through the way of honor, respect, and gratitude? Shall we call for the highest possible vibration? Shall we call for the highest possible vibration? Shall we call for the highest possible vibration? I now ask that everyone take a sip of water and ask for the water to hydrate our brain and bodies. Water is that medium that holds memory and will assist in the flow of information that we share together here on Clubhouse. Now, take a deep breath in, bringing in peace, and releasing and exhaling, letting everything else out. Take another deep breath in, bringing in joy and gratitude. And exhale out, and another deep breath in, bringing in life into our bodies. And exhale out, releasing all that does not serve us. En Lakesh and Veritas, everyone, I call forth the oneness and truth of the information shared by each and every one of us on this call, calling in that frequency of truth and all that is truth, with honor, respect, and gratitude to you all. For those who are unfamiliar with the term, the greeting En Lakesh is a Mayan greeting for oneness, signifying unity where everything and everyone are interconnected. It is that idea of community where we can share with one another ideas, goals, and aspirations. And veritas is a Latin word for truth, to see the truth in all things. So therefore, Enlication Veritas is that declaration of oneness and truth in which we are clearing our spaces, the space we're in now, so that we may be able to bring forth a truthful, elevated, and enlightened discussion this evening, clearing away those ill thoughts that we tend to pick up and carry with us from our everyday life experiences. Remember, our words hold power. So it is important that we use our words carefully, using words to uplift, encourage, and enlighten. And by doing so as a collective will help us to transform our spaces and places into higher frequencies that will result in better experiences in our lives and assist in raising the vibration of those who we interact and meet with. So, and La Kitchen Veritas, everyone, with honor, respect, and gratitude, I would like for everyone to again hold their water in their hands and with intention in mind, send your water to the frequency of En Lakesh and take a sip of the water. This is thereby assisting, signaling, and incorporating the elevated frequency En Lakesh into the cells of our bodies. And using this technique will assist in the ease and flow of the information we share this evening. So En Lakesh and Veritas, everyone. So I wanted to start with some news events. Did you know that immigrant children were being kept in a concentration camp in the US today? So in the news, it's not well publicized, but a few weeks ago, there was a whistleblower who spoke to former Fox News anchors about a concentration camp in Texas and it was immigrant children pouring across the southern border where they were keeping these children in these camps. And these children are then being flown to homes in other states, such as New York and Florida, and are being trafficked. So this particular camp is housing about approximately 5,000 immigrant children. and it's in closed facilities like Walmart, a closed Walmart, and the Walmart was closed because of COVID. So I guess that's how they're trying to make their money, and then they're smuggling these children in, and they get more money per child in trafficking. The younger that they are, it's the better. And I don't know if you know, but they make more money trafficking children compared to trying to sell drugs, because you can send that child out and use them over and over again. So they're funding lobbyists, greasing the politicians' pockets to encourage policies and laws that support the open border policies, with crime going up the roof. There's such an increase and escalation of this type of crime. There's a lot of profit. Again, more in this than with drugs. And they're stating that the US is the largest purveyor of human trafficking in the world. So the politicians are not very responsive. And the question is, are these people I'm thinking, it's just such an egregious act. Are these people cloned? Are they real? Allowing for this behavior to occur to our children. This is anti-life. Does anybody have any comments about it? I'm I know, Stacy, you're trying to say something, and I'm trying to invite you into the room. However, I can't. It's saying you're already invited, and I know you want to say something. You've got your hand raised. Okay, there you go. Can you
And,
say? There you go. Thank you. And
and
Lakeisha Veritas.
with honor, respect, and gratitude.
With honor, respect, and gratitude.
So when I first heard about this story, it
Yeah.
was that initial moment of disbelief, and then it was the realization of I'm not surprised by it, because a lot of what we see happening has happened historically, and we see that all of the forces against are really just trying to take everything up a notch. And hearing the story and having kind of followed the whole crisis, the quote unquote crisis at the border,
Hmm.
it makes sense now of what the true plan behind it was. And as we've discussed many a times before, of how our children are just so under attack. And now it's a matter of, now we're going to capitalize on those that are in fear,
Hmm.
and how we've talked fear being used against us. And we I watched the videos as well from the stories, and they even discussed how, if you notice the behaviors and the mannerisms of those that were bringing the children to the border, you could tell that it wasn't necessarily family members. They
Hmm.
were speaking about the males that were kind of escorting them, and it wasn't like a fatherly or uncle type of mannerism. So we see that it's purpose. It's on purpose,
Yeah.
and it's so frustrating to see that our children are being taken advantage of,
Yeah.
because even with the idea, because I recall them asking the question, where are the children going? And when they were stating that they're being flown to more affluent areas and
Mm-hmm.
affluent houses, we can use with our spiritual imaginations and figure out what's really happening there. And it just shows that we know that our children hold the peace to help resolve a lot of the issues that's happening. But once that trauma is imposed on them, in addition to all the other generational trauma and lineage, it defeats them. And we really are in this space of either you're hopeful of recreation of not recreation of the ability to create an experience that is joyful, and it really serves us, or a lot of people are just hopeless because they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They can't see what's right with the situations that's in place. um and something else that they were speaking about, and it's so interesting, And it's one of those constant reminders of seeing what's in me that's allowing this to happen. So the escorts that, take the children to the different places are border control. And interesting enough, after I watched that video, I kept getting border control job applications within my email.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, wow. So if this was me about 2 years ago and I was very naive and just, it would have been like, oh, okay, I'm still not going to work at the border. But, how many people are playing into this plan without awareness of their, willful agreement with what's happening? So thank goodness for the whistleblower who's exposing what's happening,
Yeah.
but how many more people are in that situation that is going along with it because that's their employment, that's their job, that's their income. And, it just reminds me that Lyota's always talking about, like, when we allow ourselves to be enslaved to fiat currency, we'll allow darkness to win. And I think that's a lot of what's happening, because between those that are working as border control and being the escorts and, transporting these kids and trafficking these kids, to, those that are in the affluent uh, lifestyles that see that they have to exploit and enslave children to continue to live within their lavish lifestyle. It's all very disheartening, but we see why it's happening. I'm gonna
Mhm.
stop there because there's so much more to it. But it's interesting that those that are being capitalized upon are those that are without the resources.
Mhm.
So I'll stop
Yeah.
there.
It's interesting. Remember when Trump was in office and he was trying to shut down the border, and it's like, okay, but then yet, it's called ICE. I keep calling it either ISIS or it's ICE that came around and separated the children. We're ex, um, exporting the immigrants back into Mexico and separating the child and the parent. So that was egregious in itself because they did not account for the the child and the parent. They just separated them, and so then now when the parents want to get back to their child, they couldn't find them.
It absolutely, and it really makes us really examine this whole idea of oneness, because I'm sure many of us, and myself being included, we think about, like, oh, well, I'm miles and miles away from the border. That's not going to impact me. That's not going to. But I had to change my lens of thinking to, that could be my child. How would
Yeah,
I want
it
somebody to
could. Yep.
recognize my child? How would I want somebody to support me? And as I spoke on, like, I think about the generational trauma that's imposed. Like, already these families are fleeing their countries because of unrest and financial constraints. And now they're coming to a space and they're being separated from their children when they're trying to provide for their children and do the best for their children.
Yeah.
So this frustration, this anger, all these frequencies are just continuing to just grow. And it's so counterproductive. And I even believe I saw an article from Guatemala, and the officials in charge was just saying it's better for you not to even leave here. Like, if you try to go to the border, like, you're not going to be
Right.
met with this glamorous life
With
that
open
you.
arms. With open arms. Absolutely. They don't
So
realize that they're thinking they're escaping work conditions that will be worse, but they're going into something that is more egregious. I think the
ab-
separation of you from your child is one of the most heinous crimes
absolutely,
that.
absolutely,
So I again, I've talked discussed it earlier, that movie Sound of Freedom. I recommend people, if it's still out in the theaters, I recommend that people go out and see it and support the film because they're not promoting it as much, but it's about um uh child human trafficking, and it's a true story. And so I know that there was a discussion brought up who's going to pick it up, and Netflix and Disney was not going to pick it up. And Elon Musk made a statement that he was going to go ahead and support the movie and show it on Twitter, which I'm not sure if they show movies on there, but you know. So anyway, it's making quite a bit of a there's quite a bit of talk and discussion on that particular movie. And they didn't promote it much, but if you look at IMD, is it IMBD? There, it's like a 8 point something star review. So needless to say, they're saying that it should the movie information regarding the movie should be spread by word of mouth, and it is. It's a sensitive subject, because there's a lot of hidden corruption going on with regards to this particular um, type of crime. Human trafficking. It's not only human trafficking with the sex trafficking, but it's also organ harvesting. That's another thing that's out there. Just egregious acts. And that's why I was asking, are these people cloned? Because it's just so anti-life, anti-humanistic. How could anybody think to do this to like innocent children and people? So it's just something to think about. All right. So I guess in this same vent, did you want to say something, Stacy?
I did. And as you can tell, this is very like
Yeah, I know. I'm like that too. I'm
um
passionate about this, obsessed. That's why I keep bringing it up.
very passionate about it. And it's so interesting because to kind of answer your question, because it's not a solid answer because there's so many different layers to it. But it makes me really think about the idea that those that harm other children were likely harmed in their childhood.
True.
And while the saying is like, oh well, you can't be blamed for what happened in your childhood, but as an adult, it is your job to do that healing so that you're not imposing your same hurt on others. And I believe that's what a lot of people that are a part of this are experiencing. Like they experience some type of, hardship, and now they are imposing it on other people. So that's the short answer, but it still doesn't justify
Yeah,
these
that
acts.
person doing those acts. Yes, I agree. I totally.
So
That's why it's so important to do things like raising our vibration, doing things to elevate us, to pull us out of that loop pattern of behavior if that should have occurred from that past trauma. The property clearing makes a big difference. That is it, clearing that energy from our spaces. By doing so, it'll shift so that people are safe. you know so anyway, and now I want to shift into another discussion. So in the news, it's regarding Ukraine. It says, while we're focused on the war, there's been other egregious things happening in Ukraine. So recent reports have emerged that Ukraine, over the past few weeks, have women are kept underground in underground bunkers by companies making billions off of a baby farming industry. This goes back to like Black American slavery, where they had farms, baby farms for the Black slaves back in 1700s, 1600s, 1800s for that matter.
I was being patient because I knew I was gonna bring it up, and I'm like, I know she's gonna cover it. I know she's gonna cover it. And thank you. Because again, this is another one of those instances. Like I know I've been caught in conversations like, man, that couldn't have been me. Let me have been. So now it's like, okay, so you talked all that now. So now here it is in this lifetime. What are you really gonna do? And
Yeah,
this idea of like within that story, it was even speaking about how the women have to be impoverished. They have to be from a lower economic status because they know that they can take advantage of them because of that.
yeah, yeah. That's just like women who are in addiction,
Yeah.
who are recovering from addiction, and their children are lost to foster care, and then they age out of foster care. These kids are prey to trafficking, to drug addiction, to other drug addiction, to all sorts of things. So they look for people in a specific grouping that need money, that need help, and then the abuse just escalates and repeats itself over and over again in their lives. you know.
Yes.
So
And it makes me, as always, think of, yeah, we can see and we can predict what the outcomes are going to be within this immediate time period, 2 3 years. But what about when those babies become adults and they are at that point of childbearing years? They're not going to want to have children because the experiences that they've had, for those that are coming across the border to those that are in Ukraine, it's just, we are literally in this moment of depopulation, and then we're the ones that are here are being discouraged from procreating. So then it's just like, what are we really being faced with? Like, the situation is so layered that we're so kind of nearsighted with it. It has such larger implications that we are not mindful of, and that's going to be self-destruction in a sense. Like, it's so infuriating because these kids are not going to want to go through the same trauma, because even if it's not the same situation, it's still within their memory, it's still within their DNA, and that's going to play a huge part in everything.
yeah, well, they have the stories of cloning babies. Remember we talked about that as several months ago on Clubhouse. Artificial intelligence and cloning babies. So what is it? They want us to decrease depopulate, so that then they can introduce the alien anti-life forms out. I don't know, but I mean the thing is that we have to speak up for our children. With all the corruption going on, we must protect our children. So there's a something else I wanted to discuss as well. So I saw a segment on children's health defense where a mother who is a naturopath raised her daughter healthy, by healthy means, unvaxxed, was sent off to college. So she conceded to getting the child who went to college, conceded to getting the shot because she wanted to attend activities that her friends were allowed to go to who also received the shot. So in this instance, she received two shots. So her mother reported that, her daughter was not feeling well, being anxious, not knowing where these symptoms were coming from. And her mother wanted to help her and asked her to come home, but she refused to listen and said, "Oh, her campus doctors are taking care of it. Everything's taken care of it." So, needless to say, she was getting worse, and she was on multiple meds for different things. And what happened was is that they ended up finding her dead. She died in her sleep. So her mother has been trying to get answers, information. But because of the HIPAA laws, they're restricting her. They were restricting her when she was in the hospital and she was trying to get information from her when she was admitted, a couple of times. So she found out, she's got some information, but she found out that the campus doctors had given her Alderol and some other medications to relieve her anxiety feelings. But she was also, because of the physical symptoms, she was also given several other medications. Now, remember, her mother was a naturopath who wanted her to come home and to help stabilize her, but she refused because she entrusted herself with the doctors that were there, the school. So, an article I was also reading from Dr. McCullough, he was reporting that there's a rise in heart attacks in young athletes. And these are young athletes that are in college. Aside from these other medical, and it's aside from other additional medical issues. But so far, there are three popular young athletes who are popular, who are reported to have had heart conditions, including cardiac arrest, while actively playing. There was the one, Damar Hamlin. He's a football player for the Buffalo Bills, experienced cardiac arrest on the field on national TV. And then there's Sharif O'Neal, son of Shaquille O'Neal, 23 years old, requiring heart surgery. in 2018. And then there is 18-year-old Bronny James, who's the son of LeBron James, who recently suffered a cardiac arrest while playing for USC. But there are hundreds of other young people who are reported to have actually died suddenly in their sleep, US as well as globally in the world. My son has a good friend who died in his sleep from cardiac issues. And why? Well, we can say what the one common thing that happened is that the shot requirements. Now, some of the schools they've lifted that, but some of them are trying to reinstate it. Some have kept it in place. But a lot of this information is not being published or seen or reported in the mainstream. So, according to VAERS, which is the Adverse Event Reporting System, as of July 28, 2023, there were 27,343 cases of myocarditis and pericarditis and 20,505 heart attacks and 35,726 deaths, all connected to the shot. So, just to discuss it, the restrictions that are imposed on parents of our children, especially our children who are sent away that are in school, is very scary. It inhibits us as parents from trying to protect them. We don't want to necessarily, they're young adults, granted, with freedom of speech and so forth. But to me, it's just a way so that they can gain control of our young people, creating a new generation of enslaved youth, feeding them information that can be false, working with impressionable young minds who will just follow rather than, training them to think for themselves so that they can empower themselves and take action, on basically things that are for their highest and best interests. This applies to the medical records, as we discussed in that particular case with the naturopath and her daughter. But I don't know if you had a child in college, you can't get their grades. They will not give you grades, but they do expect you to make that payment to the school. But you can't get the grades of your child. This places us in a disadvantage. So any comments regarding that? So a lot of food for thought. We must be vigilant. Yes, Farina. And Lakesh Veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude.
In the Cash and Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude. I didn't know LeBron James kid had a heart condition.
Yep,
That's,
cardiac arrest.
wow,
Yep,
that's pretty impressive in a negative way.
right.
And
Yeah, and you didn't even know about it. You know
no,
how much it was publicized.
yeah, they're keeping that down.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, what state did you know from that story about the girl in college? What state she was in?
Oh, I forgot. I'm thinking it's Midwest, but I can't remember.
Because it seems like after a death like that, that the parents, the loved ones should be able to access the records to.
I would think so too, but she said a year later, it was like trying to get information. It took a while for information regarding it.
It just doesn't make sense to me because
No.
I can see, you want to protect privacy if the person's alive, but if they're dead, you should be investigating.
Yeah, but they're the schools, they're trying to protect.
They're trying to suppress.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Mhm.
right. Unfortunately, at the
and
ex-
then and then that's causing more trauma to the mama because then she has to go through court and lawyers and whatnot to,
exactly, and that's
to
what she's
get.
doing.
Yeah.
And that's she's doing, and that's traumatic because
It's
you
traumatic.
are your child,
Hmm.
a healthy child that went to school.
But I bet you these doctors don't learn anything from that. So many people, I can tell you, I see so many people that are messed up on these stimulants, Adderall and Vyvanse. Um, they take it for years and they don't realize it's depleting their adrenals.
Hmm.
Um,
I don't see how
inevitably,
they can't see that. I can't fathom how these doctors can't see that if the patients keeps coming to them. The doctors are burnt out and they're not thinking. They're just following.
they're not thinking because the patients, the first thing they start complaining about is that they can't sleep.
Hmm.
And that's because you're on speed. You're not going to be able to sleep on speed.
Right. Right.
But then they prescribe more. They'll increase the dose. They have them on things that are, medications that are contradicting each other. They'll have them like taking Valium to go to sleep and then taking Adderall
I
to wake up.
know. Does that even make sense?
No.
You know. And the kids actually even report feeling loud
Yeah.
when they're on it.
Yeah. It's just the world is this is I mean what you guys said in the beginning. It's just through and through.
Yeah.
And look at your Veritas Unexpected Gratitude.
And like Veritas, Serenia, with honor, respect, and gratitude.
I wanted to comment on the Adderall and the Vyvanse and all the other stimulants. They started with the children. In my experience with working with them, um, the students would come to me or, and tell me that they were having all of these experiences and that they just felt empty inside.
Mm.
And then they would have the heart palpitations and that. And so I would call the parents and let them know, this is something you want to talk to the doc about or whatever, or I can call the doctor and talk to them about it or the other healthcare providers. And they were like, the answer from the doctors were, or the healthcare providers were, just keep increasing the dosage because I had a similar, and the side effects that go away because I personally had a similar experience. It wasn't Adderall or anything, it was an antidepressant.
Uh-huh.
And I was having side effects and dryness and increased heart rate and all of that stuff that goes with all of those those meds. And the doc, she told me to keep increasing it, and I'm like, it's not going to go away, you just get used to the symptoms.
Oh my
But that
gosh.
doesn't make any sense to me, so I stopped taking it, and I talked to my doctor and he's like, no, stop taking it.
Hmm.
But it's a common thing, and it started with the children. And when I would talk to parents about it, when we would be in our meetings for the educational plans and that, the first response from the psychologists and everybody and the teachers was to put them on the medicine because that's the norm, and so people tend to do the norm versus what's right for the person,
Hmm.
and it's not individualized at all. But it was quite crazy to me. It was incongruent behavior,
Right.
and I was in it too, but I wasn't in agreement, but I was there. So I had
Hmm.
to be in some kind of agreement, but it's just my observation. So just
Right. Well, I mean, now, we know the truth and we know that something has to be done about it, and just spreading the word and letting people know that there's a better way. And people, even our young people are starting to listen more because they know, they look at a lot of their parents and grandparents and seeing, all the chronic illnesses that are manifesting and the multiple medications, the polypharmacy all the multiple medications that they're on. And they're looking and there's like, I don't necessarily want to be like that. But as my daughter said, they're saying that I'm not here to live. I'm only here to live for a good time, but not a long time. So some are self-defeating, right? Is that right? Yeah, I'm here. I'm here
I'm here
for
for a good
a.
time, not for a long time.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Niara. And Lakeisha Veritas, I'm respecting gratitude. I
But
guess what.
go ahead. I'm sorry. Who was
No,
that?
no, go ahead, Serenia, please.
I was gonna say, I guess when you're used to not eating food, when your diet is, just the Flaming Hots and the the Red Bull and all of those things that they eat consistently, it just exacerbates the problem, and they continue down that path. And so, when it's addressed, they don't know what else to do because it's such a, again, it's such the norm that
Right.
they don't even know that real food is going to make a difference, and I know
So
how
it
many times you
affects their
discuss
thinking.
it. Hmm?
It affects their thinking.
Hmm. Yeah.
I talk to some family members about, okay, eat this is better for you, that, and they like frown at me. I have some nieces and nephews that are young, and they're kind of like laughing at me, and I'm like, okay, you know, well, I mean, you pay in the long run, but even not even in the long run, but even in the short term, their performance, because there's a lot of kids that are turning up sick because of the diet.
In Lakesh Veritas, without respect and gratitude,
And look at us, Stacy.
think, thinking about the college student, it made me think back to an experience that I had when I first went away to school, and the idea of like my mom, who's a nurse, um, they didn't disclose information to her. And while at the time it was just like a code or whatever it was, but I did recall like, oh, okay, yeah, like I have that privacy. But then at the same time, I personally wanted her to have the details because she understood a lot more of what was being discussed so that I could better help myself and for, additional guidance. Because thinking about a lot of the schools, like health centers and services, like it's really like get you in, get you out, give you something to, pacify you so you can go about your way. But
Yeah.
what I remember the most was that like they gave me codeine and I had never had codeine in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was intense. And it was just like it became more intense than what I was experiencing. And I'm
Uh-huh.
just now, for college students, you're adults technically, you have access to finances. So for certain medical items or medications to be prescribed, like that's the optimal time to kind of reprogram another, dependency, because now they can actually fund what they want if they, feel a sensation that they've been missing, sort of say. And a lot of college students are stressed and all these different things. So I'm just thinking about how that's another possible, big pharma money grab in a sense. Like
Oh,
that's a population.
yeah.
Um, so it's not related so much to the student losing her life, but it just goes into like that whole privacy. Is it really who is it really benefiting? Like so. It just makes me think like even though they're adults, yes, but it's still another one of those like layers of protecting our children, because at that point we all think, oh, we're grown, I can make my decisions, but we need that support still because we know, we don't fully mature and develop our brain completely until post college.
Yes.
So it just shows light to how they are again targeting those that are not in the best situation or best place to make the decisions. And as Serenia has brought up too, like yeah, the food that is the quote unquote food that's being presented, the Takis and Flaming Hots, and that's not helping brain functioning to make proper decisions either. So again, we just have to be mindful, educate, and speak out on it because it's all part of the plan.
Right, 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 right. Thank you for that. And you're right. It is part of the plan. I think it is, in order to basically separate them from the wisdom of the parents in order to help guide the child, or the young adult, I should say. You know, anyway, we've got our work to do. Keep plugging in and moving in truth, showing everybody how to raise their elevation and doing things that will help support life. That's basically what we're trying to do. because everything that we're describing that's happening to our children is anti-life. you know Anything else? Well, thank you for this discussion. It was very helpful. I find it helpful to be able to share this information out there, and start thinking about what can we do to contribute to help our children, help our future, and propagate our lineage. So I would also like to remind everyone of our weekly 30-minute whole responsibility sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 a.m., 12:30 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time through Zoom, as well as an extended 45-minute session on Wednesdays at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A great tool to help be consistent in utilizing this meditation for 3 consecutive days, utilizing the energy of Ho'oponopono and helping to shift our energy into one of manifestation. You can use the same link for each of the sessions, and we invite you to join and commune with us in the power of a Ho'oponopono. Also, our next Divine Nation workshop is scheduled for Friday, September 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, hosted by Diane Annis of Enlakesh Studio One. And then we've got our Abundance and Prosperity group call. Did I get that right? Or Diane, was that correct?
In the Cash and Veritas with respect and gratitude. This Friday is
Oh, is
another
another?
one.
Oh, okay. Sorry. This
That's
Friday.
okay. Then September 15th, but this is
Oh,
this
September.
Friday in a couple days. So
So
thank you in
that's
the Cash and Veritas.
the 20. So the 25th, correct? Oh,
25th,
25th. Okay.
August 25th.
August
Thank
20.
you.
August 25th. I should have asked you to just announce that for us. But thank
That's
you.
okay.
Thank you for the correction.
Thank you in the Cash and Veritas.
And La Kitchen Veritas. All right. And we've also, I want to just remind everyone of the Abundance and Prosperity group call hosted by Of the Sun, meeting daily at 2:45 and 8:45 p.m. for only 5 minutes. There's power in numbers, raising the energy of helping to manifest abundance in our lives. You can register on the ofthesun.com website, found under the Meditations and Mindfuls tab. And I wanted to give a shout out to Serenia of Enlica Studio 4. She did a lacto fermentation class this past Sunday, which was awesome. Very, very informative, showing us how to make our own fermented drinks. And it's so easy. She made it so easy. So I'm looking forward to attending more of these classes of fermentation. We're having more classes, right, Serenia?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. In Lakesh Veritas, I'm expecting gratitude. Yeah, something coming up in September. We're gonna do change of season kind of thing. It's gonna be like a little series
Okay.
of how we can build our immune system, with ferments and foods and tonics, different kind of things, herbs.
That would be great. That'll be great. Become self-empowering, take ownership of our own immune system.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And for those who are interested in learning how to energetically clear your property, since we're talking about all these energies that are in our spaces, clear, the energetic debris, I recommend considering learning to see about taking a class for property clearing with Up the Sun, either experiencing for yourself and even also learning to take the class. So level 2 is currently in is ongoing right now for a couple of weeks, but I believe that level 1 is scheduled for no starting in November. And I'll they should be announcing the exact date soon. So I do recommend that everyone join them. What a wonderful world it would be that if all of us can clear our spaces and places of all that low level energetic debris that's in our environments. Stephanie, did you have something or
Yes, ma'am. In the Cash and Veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude to everyone.
and like
The The QLPC level one is going to be starting October the 14th.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you. And Stephanie does a quick workshop if anyone's interested on clearing your devices. So and that was a great workshop also too. So the prerequisite is level 1 and level 2. Is that correct, Stephanie?
For the workshop is level one.
Oh, level 1. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
But
Thank you.
thank you. And it's just a afternoon session, just learning how to focus and clearing your devices. So it was a really informative class, a workshop. I recommend it. And I also like to give a shout out to Sarana. She did a great interview with of the Sun because they just restarted their podcast. I recommend listening to it on YouTube, I believe. Call for the Truth. So she did an awesome job, and they're starting to release all their podcasts on that venue of YouTube. So I encourage everyone to listen. And I like to thank everyone for joining and participating in this discussion. I look forward to seeing you again next week. And remember, knowledge is power, and taking action from this knowledge is true power. With honor, respect, and gratitude, and Lakesh and Veritas.
And look at
In
your
the Christian
respect and
Veritas,
And
with
the
gratitude.
honor,
Cash
respect, and
Veritas. Thank
gratitude.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.